Okay, yeah. Would you like to talk about your kind of, I don't know, what's on your mind right now? What's flowing through there?
What isn't on my mind right now? I think you're gonna have to ask me something specific because
Okay, so well, what do you go by?
the name I go by is OSHA with a small O, inspired by the federal agency Occupational Safety and Health Administration with the acronym OSHA, all caps. And if you don't do the small O, then almost anywhere that you would write it online or even in text, it will automatically autocorrect to all caps. I don't want to be confused with that inept federal agency. They call me the real OSHA because I actually care.
Do you kind of like want to walk us through your life's journey, your path, and how you've kind of gotten maybe several of the chapters of your life that are kind of highlights?
From what I understand, I was born. I don't recall that, but it was a natural childbirth. I was lucky that way. And I was born in Southeast DC, and I've only met two other people this melanin deprived born in that quadrant anywhere near my vintage. These days, with DC being the most gentrified city in the nation, that has changed. So I was born in Little Africa. And two parents who are very unusual parents, super intellectuals. They met in Russian immersion class 10 hours a day for 6 months. And at Indiana University, Bloomington, my mother was working on her master's in music. My father was in the Russian immersion program in the Air Force. And there were 500 airmen and my mother. My mother pretty much already achieved her master's in music before she arrived there. She was extraordinary musician, and on her undergrad at Florida State. And so I think it was just that she needed something else to do. So the head of the music department arranged with the head of the foreign language department for my mother to be able to be in this program with the airmen. 10 hours a day for 6 months. And so she was the only woman, and the first day of class, apparently there were no more chairs. She got there after they did, and my father was in charge of supplies, and he knew where the chairs were. So he went to the supply closet, got a chair, and set it where? Next to himself. How strategic. And they're such geeks, their whole courtship was in Russian as well. And my mother was raised here in Sarasota, Florida, and her parents were extreme musicians. Her father, a maestro of music from the Royal Conservatory of Naples, Italy. He was the head of the piano department at the Chicago Conservatory, and that's where he met my grandmother from Kansas, his student, 19 years his junior, Ruth Andrews. He was Gennaro Paolo De Luca. And they got married. She was obsessed, and she had I think she'd already been the head of music for the city of Sundance, Wyoming. She had her undergrad degree in music teaching from Emporia State University in Kansas, and she's absolutely obsessed with music and teaching. And my grandfather's doctor told him that he needed to move to a warmer climate for his health. They started driving south, and in 1936, just stopped in Sarasota on Main Street, opened their music studio. And my mother was born in 1937 here, and the family were founding members of the symphony and the youth orchestra of Sarasota. Now the Florida West Coast Symphony's name has changed to the Sarasota Orchestra. But my mother was a soloist in a concert that raised the money for the building they currently occupy when she was a teenager. And my grandmother and then my mother, all the musicians were volunteer in the beginning. And so now they're really big, like important musical groups. And that's wonderful. I'm very proud of that. My father grew up on a farm in Maryland, and our ancestry there goes back to 1650 in Mount Airy, and grew up pretty poor, but he was smart, and I think he was the first one in that family. He was one of 7 children to go to college, and so my grandmother, and her sisters did not approve of my father. They wanted, and my grandmother especially wanted somebody like appropriate, like somebody from the orchestra for my mother. And there was a man who was proposing to her from the orchestra at Florida State, but my father was the first person who listened to her, she said. So they had to elope. And I think that was 62, and then I was born in 66, and I was an oopsie. But and my mother, with Asperger's, not officially diagnosed, but it's absolutely obvious. My mother, father, and brother, all Aspie. She was an only child, had never really, even babysat. The only experience she had with children, she said, was babysitting a sleeping infant for 2 hours. And she told me that she almost threw me off the balcony because she didn't know what to do with this creature. And I guess the postpartum, whatever goes on with that, I don't know. Haven't been pregnant. Haven't gone through that. So I was like, that was one of the first time I escaped death. It's happened many times since then. And she wasn't really connected to the whole maternal role. She was performing as a concert pianist. She was a soloist with the Air Force Symphony, and she was doing a lot of performing and teaching as well. And my father did not think she was doing a very good job as a mother, so he first told her she needed to stop performing. And she grew up in the music studio here, where my grandmother ended up teaching till she was 96. So all my mother really knew was music, and then she had a very, very busy and successful teaching business from home with her grand piano. And then later my father said she needed to stop that too, because he would come home from work and she didn't know where the children were. We were off playing, and my brother was 3 years younger. And I was probably 6 and he was 3 at that time. And she'd be having tea with a neighbor, because here in Sarasota, she grew up in that way where children could just run around and it was safe. And my father said, that's it, you have to stop teaching. And he dictated a letter for her to send to all of her students' parents. And so she said she found herself just like sorting socks and not knowing what had become of her life, and just very disoriented. She ended up having some serious mental breakdowns. I remember one of them where she went running out of the apartment we were living, screaming, and to the playground. It was a major scene in the neighborhood. And then the men in white coats came and they took her away for 1.5 years. And she didn't want to leave the mental hospital. She said she felt like she'd forgotten how to boil water, and she ended up, I think her way out was to partner up with someone else who was a patient. Richard, I think was his name. And then she filed divorce with my father. And apparently the day the divorce was final, or the day after, she married this man, Richard, who later, and I remember, they would pick us up sometimes and we'd spend the day with them. And he would smoke in the car, and he's kind of a little rough guy. Not at all. My mother is not like that at all. And it was an odd pairing, for sure. But then he threatened to, quote unquote, bust her in the mouth. He said, "I will bust you in the mouth." And my mother said, "That's it." And she was out of there, and they froze her bank accounts and stuff like that. And so she got out of that marriage, and then she changed her name. Her name is Anna Maria Christina DeLuca, and she went by Maria, and she changed her name to Chris. My mom's coming through me with all these name changes, I'm sure. People kind of annoyed with my name changes too. I used to get annoyed with hers, and like Chris, and then it was Christy, then it was Christina, then it was Crystal, then it was Crystal. And I was like, please, do I have Crystal? Okay, are you gonna call me Jenna? If you call me Jenna, I'll call you Crystal. She said, I'm not a piece of crystal. I said, I know, but So I moved to Sarasota. Gosh, it's a lot of skipping going on of the story, but it's pretty abused by my father, quite abused by my father, mentally, emotionally, and physically, all my childhood, and he told us that our mother abandoned us. And I was my brother's mother figure. His mother's out of the picture. And he told us that our mother abandoned us, and my brother really suffered from that, very much so. He was very attached to our mother. We only heard from her like every couple of years. She would call, and say, I just came from the most fabulous party, and she didn't know what was going on with us in school or anything. And so, that took its toll, especially on my brother, which then in turn took its toll on me, because my brother ended up having multiple mental hospitalizations and manic episodes and delusional and all that. Super genius with math and memorization and other things. And I believe a lot of it had to do with his feeling abandoned by our mother, but also challenged with the typical Asperger's stuff. And then how am I supposed to be a good mother when I was only born 3 years before he was. I was doing my best, but so fast forwarding many years, I discovered the benefits of raw food. And
so was this in your 20s or your 30s?
Discovering the benefits of raw food. This was in there was a yoga teacher I knew in Sarasota who I'd known her for years, and I saw her one day, and she had really transformed. I mean, she had dropped weight, not that she was heavy before, but she was just lean, and her skin was glowing, and her eyes were bright, and there was a bounce in her step, and I just said, what's going on? And she said, well, I got a divorce, and I went raw. And I was like, what, raw? What's that about? And I said, can you teach me something? And she was just always too busy. And I would, every time I saw her, I said, can you just teach me something, anything? Can you teach me a recipe? I just don't know anything about it. It felt like rocket science to me. And she never really ended up having time, as it turned out, or it just didn't line up. And then another friend here went raw. And then, I had a client, Linda Larson, who was an incredible motivational speaker, and with an amazing acting theatrical background as well. I'm not saying as well as me, but as well as you, the interviewer, Kenny. And I was doing her public relations and finding opportunities and things. And she had an office kind of attached to her home, and that's where I would go and work on creating database and opportunities, etc. And I saw her the day she left and the day she came back from a 2-week health retreat. She just called it a health retreat. And again, it was like the yoga teacher. I was just blown away. I mean, her pants were falling off, her skin was glowing, eyes sparkling, smiling, bounce in her step. And I said, what goes on at this health retreat? And she said, well, it's based on raw food. And I said, okay, I gotta know what this thing is about. And at the time, I had moved to Sarasota in 1998 after my grandmother broke her hip. Oh God, there's a whole other story associated with that where I almost lost my life another time. But she was in her house. She was still teaching music, and there was water intrusion going on. And I called her at Christmas, and she said she was in her galoshes. At the time, she was about 90, and I thought, this is not okay. I need to go. And she's living alone, and all of her neighbors ended up being commercially zoned right downtown where she was living. No more neighbors, all commercial around her. She used to have a neighbor who was like a handyman and friend who would come over and fix things. And I thought, I've got to just go there and see because she could slip or something. And I met a guy at the daiquiri deck on Siesta Key one day who seemed really nice, and he offered his pump, to pump out the water. His name is Gary, and I thought that would be wonderful, and at the time we didn't even know the negative effects of mold. That wasn't a thing. That was 98, and so that was great. The pump worked, somewhat. It was helpful, and then I was very grateful to him. Of course, we both were. And then he and I kind of formed a relationship, and I went back to DC because I had my public relations consulting business there, and I had my apartment there in Cleveland Park near the National Zoo in the 20008 highest education level in the country, zip code, as an aside. And I thought Gary was then helping my grandmother with other things, so he kind of became her handyman, and he called her Ruthie. Her name is Ruth DeLuca. That was after the Persian man. That was a little bad. I was in a relationship with a Persian man before that, who was, I think, about 19 years my senior, and I wanted to end the relationship, and he got very close to everyone in my family: my grandmother, my 2 great aunts, my mother, my father, my brother, and essentially like trying to convince them that I was crazy and to make it impossible for me to leave him. He became the executor of my grandmother's will, and it was pretty disturbing, and I just didn't want to be in that relationship anymore because I found him to be kind of using me as a foil for his. He felt vulnerable being Persian and being, the age he was, and he liked having, a confident white young woman on his arm, and there was no real, and I thought, we could just keep doing this forever, but I actually want a real relationship, and I wasn't physically attracted to him and anymore, and or really ever, but my friends were all saying, oh, he's such a great guy, you really should give him a chance. So he was the head of sales for the East Coast of Hewlett-Packard, so sales guy, salesman.
Wow. So how about your?
So just to say, what happened was I shared that information with Gary. When I came here, I said I had just recently gotten out of that relationship. I shared with him how this man had manipulated my grandmother to become the executor of her will, looking for some sympathy. Instead, he decided to follow that script, and he did the same thing with my grandmother, and he also ended up in her will. And when we had a ski trip to Vail. He came and visited me in DC, and then we decided that I was going to move to Sarasota to be closer to my grandmother, and I was going to live with him, and that was in July of '98. And 3 weeks later, he got too drunk to drive one night, and I tried to drive, and what ended up happening was he beat my head on a boulder multiple times. And my grandmother ended up defending him in court, and I ended up going to court about 16 times. The attorney, maybe my grandmother likely paid for, had a yellow page display ad that's saying that he specializes in defending, in domestic violence situations. And he would just kind of wink and nod at the female judge, Goldman, I think is her name. He was famous because he was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and there was a famous photo of him giving the finger to top photographers coming into, he wanted to let his family know back home that he still had his, still had it going on, And so that's the kind of energy he had, and he kept getting continuance after continuance after continuance, and this is the way they would wear a witness down. And I just thought, I cannot be worn down. The universe needs to know that this cannot happen. That I am defending. I have to stand up for myself. I mean, he literally had my head beating it against a boulder and then kicking me, and and I lost my hearing for a while because he was hitting the sides of my head, and there were holes in the back of my from the earring backs, and he had dragged me outside, and I was just wearing my underwear, so there were scratches all over my back, and ended up going to the hospital. Police came. It's a whole long story.
Can I ask you about this trauma and how you've processed that? For people watching, what have been some effective ways that you've processed this trauma?
Thank you for asking that, because I really love one of the things that has come from this is that my ability to process trauma. And I was introduced to eye movement desensitization and reprogramming, EMDR. The thing that was actually most traumatic for me about all that was my grandmother testifying in his defense in court. And then, and she didn't speak to me. She didn't speak to me for about 2 years because she was upset that I wouldn't take him back, because he'd come to her crying the night after he went to jail. The next day, he came to her crying that he was so sorry, that he loved me and all that. And she thought she felt compassion toward him, and was and when she would call and beg me to take him back. And what I know about domestic violence is it just escalates, and there was no room for escalation in that one at all. I was lucky to have survived it. I was moving my head around so he wouldn't get one spot too many times, and actually break my head open. And so that wasn't happening. So she didn't talk to me for about 2 years. And it's I'm so grateful that I didn't. I still managed. We managed to recover that relationship, in the end, because she could have left her body during that time, and that would have been so traumatizing for me. For the rest of my life, I probably would have had a hard time with that. But eye movement desensitization and reprogramming is when the practitioner gave me 2 vibrating rods, and so what happens is it engages alternates, engaging the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And so you present what it is that you're traumatized about in the beginning, and then you assess a level of trauma 1 to 10, and then you go back and forth. And at that point, it was very high. It might have been like a 9 or something. And then as you continue talking about it, vibrating the rods, alternating left and right hemispheres, in 5 minutes or so, asks again, okay, now where is it? 5. And then again, and then, seriously, within 15 minutes, it's gone. It's just gone. There's talking about it there's no trigger anymore. It's not triggering. That was extraordinarily powerful. And I wanted people to know about that. And also emotional freedom technique, EFT, which people can do, or AKA tapping, which people can do, themselves. It's great to go to a practitioner. I think these are the spots: collarbone, chin, there, here, and it also helps break people out of addiction cycles. But there's a process to learn how to do that, and it's now being used to help veterans with PTSD. And psychedelics. I was afraid of them. Our father showed us all these Scared Straight videos when we were children, and I just believed, all this stuff is very scary. And there was no way I was going to touch any of that stuff. And then I learned more and more and more about it from my man. I don't like to X somebody out. That was my friend Joy. I came up with that. Wasbin. She called her the man she was previously married to. So I say was man. He described. He's the one I gave the lice to too. And he described it to me, and in such a way, over time, that I felt comfortable trying it. And he told me through the person who's kind of like his what's this called? Someone who helps you through.
Spirit guide.
There's a different name for it, but someone who helps you through an experience, a psychedelic kind of experience that's meant to be therapeutic, is a type of not a guru. It's another word for teacher. Whatever it was, he said that this is not a party thing. This is you focus on what it is that you want to learn about, what you need to know, what you want to, whatever needs to be resolved, whatever it is that you focus on. Consider that, and then this will take you deeply into that. And so my first experience was just, gosh, it just felt like being all the way wide awake, really just popping out of the matrix, just like that. The deep programming, which I'm fortunate not to have had, with my father and all his abuse. Television was not allowed at home, except, 3-legged doggy. look at that spirit. Oh, baby. Hi. Oh, look at you go. Hi, baby. Oh. Hopping along. Oh, hi, hop along. Found a good tree. Hi, baby. Oh, you want to come over and say hi? Oh, hi, baby. Shake it off. You coming all the way over? Hi, sweetie. Hello. Aren't you precious? Oh, such a precious baby. What's your name?
Sammy.
Sammy. Hi, Sammy.
He's a happy one, you can
He's
tell.
so, look at that tail going. So soft. Oh my goodness, you're so soft.
Just got groomed the other day.
Oh. Hi, beautiful. Oh my goodness, what a spirit you have. Just hopping along.
I leave you.
Oh, I know. Oh, good. Oh, you knew I needed a little puppy love. You knew. I was talking about some tough stuff and needed some puppy love.
I
Oh.
can tell your
Hey,
daddy
Sammy.
takes care of you, huh?
Say goodbye.
Oh, baby, I'll see you soon. I'm going to say ciao for now, because I'll see you again, Sammy.
Okay, let's go.
Ciao, baby. I wish I had
Bye.
a TREAT for him. So, see, and I'm just assuming he doesn't know how to spell.
Right. Yeah, the dog like recognizes that.
So, we, for the vast majority of childhood, we were not allowed to watch television. I say television. And which was really embarrassing in school because we were the only kids in school not watching it. And so that's what everyone else was talking about every day. And didn't know anything about it. So
What do you think were some positives from that?
that's what I'm saying is, yeah, the programming, the lack of so for some people, I think they need to have a whole lot of experiences with this kind of stuff to pop out of the matrix because they're so deeply programmed from a lifelong programming. And for me, you know, I guess, and people said, well, you know, you're already so awake, and that, you know, doesn't take much. So for me, I'm a sliver kind of person, very micro is all. And then at 17 hours, you know, one time I organized and deep cleaned my kitchen and like feng shui and everything because I was hosting dinner parties every Friday evening, and like they were kind of like salon, like Gertrude Stein style. And that's what I do. That's how I applied myself that time. And it's 17 hours like it went on a sliver. And it was just so gratifying to like, and to be completely just on it the whole time, like knowing what needed to be done and getting it done. And so that when people would come, because the way I did my dinner parties is people would bring things that they grew or whatever they want. It was great if they brought things they grew, herbs or fruit or vegetables or whatever, and then we'd prep together. So I had like everything organized so everybody knew where everything was in the kitchen, all the cutting boards and the knives and all the bowls. And so we would just kind of go to work and we'd figure out what we were going to co-create based on what we received. And so that was important. So that was like, that's a useful application, and that's all I've ever done is useful applications of just like, okay, now it's focused and popping out of the matrix. And which can be so distracting. It's like, seems like it's the dollars and the time on the clock are the two things that steal our peace, neither of which is real.
I have a question about your relationships. What is it that you think, what is it about these partners that you think, is it about them that attracts you to them?
I wasn't attracted to Kambiz Mustafi physically. We met at a Saudi prince's dinner party. And he liked my walk. He said I had a very confident walk, and I was glamorous then. And he pursued me. And I think our first date, and I was not, you know, I was like, I think my friend Alessandra Gelmi, she was we're still friends, just in touch recently. She loved my head design photo yesterday. She has a picture of me breathing fire with the current King of Spain when he was merely a prince in Georgetown. We were both college students. She's trying to find it. Anyway, because she was a social reporter for the Washington Times, she met all kinds of people all the time. She was also a professor of English at Boston University, wrote the book Who's Afraid of, read about the Rwandan, a romance set during the Rwandan genocide. I mean, she is a trip. But anyway, she introduced us. And Kambi is a very elegant man, very generous man, kind on the surface. Turned out not really, a lot of anger. He had to do a lot of meditation, but I'd see him just be rude to people a lot, and like when we traveled and things, just rude to the ticket agents and stuff all the time, to the point that making them cry sometimes. And I would have to I apologize, and I didn't have to, but I felt so bad, about his behavior, but he had this way of, being very charming. But I saw that other side of him, and then that's not attractive to me. But then I kind of felt like I was, okay, so our first date, I think, was Valentine's Day, and he had a pair of little ruby and diamond earrings for me, and I didn't know what to think about it. But I said thank you, and then I told my friend Gladys, who's she and her family own a Lebanese Taverna Empire. That's the word. Now in the DC metro area. At the time, they had a couple restaurants, but they're all over now. And she's Lebanese, and she said, "Oh my gosh, he's amazing." She just kept promoting him, to me, that I should really date him. And I had other friends saying, "Oh my gosh, he's so great." So I essentially was listening to them and thinking, well, none of my other relationships have worked out, so maybe I had to just listen to my friends and do something that doesn't feel instinctually, doesn't feel like a match really, but and so but I was not physically attracted. I didn't even want him to touch me. It's at a point but he was okay. He said he was okay with that he could meditate and channel his sexual energy, and through his crown chakra or something, or no, and so he didn't need sex. And I thought, okay, well, that's fine, because I was very busy with my PR consulting business, and we didn't. And so, and he basically, when Hewlett Packard had these events, where we went to Les Arcs, France, and I learned to snowboard there, and we'd have these trips, Paris, different places, Taos, New Mexico. No, that was Sedona. We went hot air ballooning and things like that, but with Hewlett Packard. And I think he wanted, he wanted me on his arm. And so I was functional for him. But at some point I thought, I really do want a partner. I actually do want an intimate relationship. And he's okay with not having it, and that's fine. This has been okay for this long, but I really do want it. And then I suggested that we do this program, the Landmark Forum, together, because I wanted clarity for both of us about this relationship, and to extricate ourselves from it, if that was what was the thing to do. And so during the program, which was 3 days, it became abundantly clear to me that this is not the relationship for me. I also found out he was pretending to be vegetarian the whole time, because I was vegetarian, and I found out from his cousin that when I wasn't around, he was eating beef, he was eating everything, and he just lied all the time. He would just say whatever was convenient, whatever he thought was the right thing to say. And then I understand that because in Iran, there was so much secrecy because of what was going on there, and he would pretend to be Italian because it was just the way people were feeling about people from that part of the world. It was not even safe to say you were from Iran. So I understand that was difficult, and but I just was not comfortable being in that relationship. So he was not okay with, he's basically this is not happening, so I'm going to force you to be in. So I'm going to try to convince your entire family you're crazy, and so basically my whole family was lobbying for him, or lobbying for me to get some kind of psychological help. And then, like I said, he ended up becoming the executor of my grandmother's will. So, coming back to, I ended up getting out of that relationship, and he said, and after I said, no, I really am finished with the relationship, he sent me a huge bouquet of flowers, and, just, really not willing to let it go. And then I thought, it looks like I just have to leave DC, and then my grandmother needs help anyway. And then I ended up in this relationship with a guy. I told about what had happened with Cam, Camby's, he called himself Cam. And he just like ran with the same playbook. It's crazy, calling her Ruthie, you know, trying to be like charming and flirty with her in a way. And so she ended up advocating for him and cutting me out for 2 years because of that. Was terribly traumatic. So every time I drove by her house, I would say, "I love you, grand-mère." She taught herself French and Russian, and she liked to be called grand-mère. And ever since I was, you know, my whole life, she was grand-mère. And I would just say, "I love you, grand-mère." It was like I was just setting the intention that there would be a breakthrough. And then one day, she had to go to the hospital for something, and it happened to be one of her piano students. She had so many piano students, oh my God, around here. Students of students of students, I mean, so many. And one of them happened to be the one taking care of her at the time. And I went to visit her in the hospital, and I brought flowers. And this was when she still was not, she would not like allow me to visit, and she wouldn't talk to me on the phone. But I showed up because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be of this hospital stay. And I showed up with flowers, and her student asked me to help move her and she was very lean, so she's not heavy, but long, long and lean, and with lifting the blanket, you know, from one side to lift her from one table onto another one, or one bed onto another one. So I was lifting her from one side, and her student was lifting her from the other side, student caregiver. So we're lifting her together, and my grandmother looked at me after I helped move her, and I said, "Hi, grand-mère," and she said, "You are so beautiful." It was like a miracle. You know, that it was how we, you know, that was the breakthrough. And then from then, you know, she really let me in, and I was the closest person to her by far in her last years of life, and was there with her for her last breath. And my mother didn't want to be there for that. They had a lot of issues. They were kind of estranged, and I was working hard on healing that, because I believe these family traumas, because I know from my own family that these mother-daughter issues have been going on for generations, because my grandmother and her siblings, I believe I'm not sure who found their mother hanging, but the family found her hanging. And so that's an extreme disconnection, right? And then her mother, that's my great-grandmother. My great-great-grandmother was a medicine woman in Kansas, and she would go by horseback to help birth babies and heal people of all kinds of things she must have learned from natives. And so she must have been kind of disconnected from her children, because she was always healing. And then her daughter ended up taking her life after she had 5 children. And I think my grandmother might have been around 12 or something, and the youngest was not very old. And so the father ended up taking care of all of them and built a house right by the university, so they'd all go to make it easy for them to all go to college at Emporia State University. And 1111 Congress, I actually want that house he built. I really want that house. Kansas real estate's super cheap. We do a B&B there. I've been there, and I've been inside of it. It's beautiful. And my grandfather built it. No, my great-grandfather. So my great-grandfather built that. My grandmother's father. Andrews. So, lots of tangents, I know, but...
No, well, I think I'm interested, like... Now,
oh, you're asking about relationships. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so just to get back to that, because of being pretty all my life. Hi there, how's it going? Good to see you. Great. You know that guy from my filmmaking stuff. I have had, plenty of experiences of being pursued. There were boys who would chase me around the playground, trying to get a whiff of my hair, and just always boys, interested in me, then, adolescents, then men, and like lots of them all the time. And so I guess my way of, like, I never pursued anybody, and nor have I yet, I don't think. So it's just whoever pursued me the most, that I felt an attraction toward, I guess I felt confident with, because if they were really that ardently pursuing me, then they must be really interested in me, and that has the most greatest likelihood of them being true to me. So I thought. However, what I've learned is sometimes those guys who are really good at pursuing, it's like a numbers game for them, and it's because they've done it so much, they've become pros at the pros. But I mean, not always, but then I experienced being cheated on, and it's just so, devastating when that stuff happens.
Where you are now in life, what are the priorities for you?
To get to Africa, where I am in life, the priority for me is I know my roots are in Eritrea. People say it all different ways. It used to be part of Ethiopia.
What will you find there? What do you think?
Those are my roots, and these are my people, and the highest concentration of people from that part of the world is where I was born, and these are the people who get me first and most and best and appreciate me the most. People of African descent or Africans in general do. That I feel by far the most appreciated, the most understood instantly. It's like they look in my eyes and they see who I am immediately. It's not like this situation I have with the melanin deprived. I think it's because of the programming, and also people of European people. People from other countries also tend to appreciate me more, understand me more, overstand me, whatever. But it's and everything that's ever happened to me that's been traumatic has been it's been a white person, robbed, raped, slander, all the stuff. It's always been whitey, and I mean, there's plenty of white people I love, of course, but I don't know, there's something about that, I think it's the village, the tribe, there's something about that ancient wisdom, I mean, just the wisdom of being able to look into someone's eyes and to actually be able to see who they are. I mean, we're told the eyes are the window to the soul, so people are looking at other stuff and suspecting, and because I care so much about all life so deeply, and I go way out of my way to protect people. Like, most people don't understand, they don't get it, they don't understand, like, what's your motive, what's your agenda, what's your angle, what are you trying to get out of this, and it's just exhausting. I mean, I've been through this, and I'll tell you, the people who get me the most and the best are African. The least and the worst are Ashkenazi Jew. Not Sephardic, Ashkenazi. For whatever reason, it's consistent. I mean, I've been experiencing this throughout my life. However, I tend to be surrounded by Ashkenazi Jews all my life. They've been around me, but they don't really get who I am, and they're just always trying to figure out, like, what's my angle? And it's just exhausting. I feel life is too short. I don't want to have to keep proving who I am. Like, I just want to be who I am. And like do what I want with my head and my hair. Like, never has an African American got on my case about that. Not once has anyone of African descent ever said to me, you should grow your hair back. It's like, it's respect. It's like, this is my head. It's none of their business. It's my name. It's nobody else's, like, what I choose to be called. There's so many things we don't have power over, now, in more than ever. And, like, to actually, like, cross that boundary with somebody and, like, be all over their case about a name change or a hair change or, whatever. It's just not appropriate. And, like, or, like, what I want to do with you shouldn't have spent all that money on a movie. You could have purchased 2 condos or a couple houses and you'd be set and you'd have, to sit on my ass in a house or a condo. No, that's not what my life is about. I don't even know what my trajectory is. I don't know where I'm supposed to be at that time. I didn't know where I was supposed to be in the world. Now I know. Got to get to Africa. Had a one-way ticket recently. Quarantine started the day of my flight. My place I was going shut down. I found out 3 hours before my flight. And then last 8-9 months, just recently, jumping around hotels, hostels, Airbnbs, and had my life threatened by someone who wanted me to marry him so he could get a green card. That was 6 weeks ago in DC. And so I ended up, I'd been here for 20 years, taking care of my grandmother and mother till their last breaths, and was there for the last breath of both of them. Hallelujah. Feeling their spirits coming through, including my grandfather. I didn't know in life, but I know because I was there for his mother, his daughter, till her last breath. I think that was the gift that came through, is that his amazing musicianship. I feel everything in my fingers. It's the coolest thing ever.
I know it's starting to get cold.
It's starting to get a little chillier.
And so I have a few lightning questions for you. If you
Lightning fast.
Okay. And so just the first things that come to mind, just instinctively go for it. How have you changed from 5 years ago?
5 years ago? It was 2015. So my mother left her body in September 12th, 2015. My birthday is the 14th. And I shaved my head, I guess a few months after that. And that's when it came to me that I'm osha. I don't believe I'm changing. I'm just still who I am. It's just I'm becoming more of myself. I guess that's what's changing, is that I'm not interested in conforming to other people's ideas about who I should be, who they want me to be, or who I should be at all. And sometimes it even gets heated. I mean, like people sometimes yelling at me, and I don't back down. It's ridiculous. And then I just come back at it with just it's inappropriate. I don't tell you what to do with your hair, regardless. It's just I am becoming more who I actually am. And osha is the name that was given to me by David Hilliard, who was he's my was man who was in my film, and that ended because of he had a marriage ultimatum for me, and I told him in the beginning I just don't believe in it because I don't want the government involved in my relationship. And at that point I was starting to tour with the film and everything, and he felt, I guess, insecurity. He said, it's marriage or I'm leaving, and so that was that. But I really we had a lot of love for each other, and he had addiction issues too, so that was intense. But we worked through a lot of stuff together. Anyway, he gave me the name, and it's just 10 years later it finally stuck. And I love that it actually sounds nice, osha. People think of ocean, and it really just came from eye rolling. Oh, thanks, osha. You're always annoying with your safety and health obsession. And I'm just embracing it even more. I mean, I guess my mission, what I said in my mission was, back at the time I was making the documentary, Supercharge Me, 30 Days Raw, was to spread the word globally about the power of getting back to nature with how we eat for mind, body, spirit, the planet, and the animal kingdom. And I'm just condensing that down to joy to the world, because if we got that going on, then we are joyful. And that's what I do. I mean, I've got literally people from literally all over the world on my Facebook, and people that I met from all over the world in my teacher training, but also because of my film, sales and things and screenings around. So the things I put out there regularly, ever since, more than a dozen years ago, it's all intended, to be beneficial, inspirational, educational, and it's a global mission. So I consider a responsibility and ability to respond. So wherever I am, whoever's in front of me presenting with a need that I can fill that's greater than my need, I feel compelled to do even and to conquer the fear with faith, that this is what I must, because otherwise I'd have cognitive dissonance. It's like, there's that person that I could have helped, and I didn't, and how am I supposed to sleep at night? So I need to have cognitive integrity. That's because it's just, I need to have peace. And my mother's last words, our mother's last words, were, I want peace. She's a peace activist, among other things. And she's coming through me now. And that's where I am. I need peace. And the only way to achieve peace is to do what I know and what I feel in the moment to be the appropriate, the right, the best, highest good, in the highest good. And I mean, and I don't know everything, but I can only act on what I know in the moment. And then, in the future I might have new knowledge, and then I'll be applying things differently, but I've got to do my best. And again, I get ridiculed for that a lot, but it doesn't matter. And the man who threatened to remove my life 6 weeks ago ridiculed me for that. You give too much to people. And it's like, it's not your business.
Wow. What are three things you're grateful for?
Oh, I'm not wearing my gratitude beads. I showed you those last time. And this is a new thing that I've got in my talisman. You got the footage of that though. And so counting blessings. And I'm grateful for this opportunity, Kenny, to thank you for taking an interest in my story based upon the quick little what happened in 2020 encounter we had at the farmers market on Saturday. Thank you for being interested. It's almost nobody knows the trouble I've seen, and so I get flack a lot, but then I get a lot of love as well. But thank you for this. It's cathartic to be able to share one story, and I like to listen to others' stories, and I do, and I think that's what people appreciate a lot about me. Is it's very hard to find someone who will actually fully listen, non-distractedly, and with care and attention, and just lack of judgment. Not judging, just listening, and with an intention to be helpful, and that's what I intend. That's what I intend to do. So I'm very grateful for this, Kenny. Thank you. It's good to be heard. Heard is the word, and then that's one thing. Another thing I'm grateful for is to be alive still. I feel like a cat. I mean, if I go through all the attempts and threats to my life, I mean, I that's a whole other story. Many stories. Every single one is a story. Very grateful to be alive. Good thing I dance, because I am quick on my feet, and I'm hyper vigilant, and that has saved my life. And also my extreme passion for life has saved my life. Not going down like that, that easily. I know I got work to do here, and it's not just the passion for life, it's my mission. And I know that this is an important mission, and I need to do absolutely everything in my power to do everything that I can to be beneficial, as long as I occupy this body. And then when I'm in spirit form, I'm going to be extra dangerous. So grateful to be alive, grateful for this opportunity to share these parts of my story, and grateful grateful to have acquired knowledge that can benefit myself and others. That's just general knowledge about what we ingest and how that affects us. And it's so helpful. I mean, pretty much all dis-ease has to do with what we're ingesting. And what we're and over ingesting often has to do with trauma and unaddressed trauma. So being able to help people with their trauma through listening, and maybe being able to make recommendations for other sources of relief, and then also being a compassionate coach, a non-judgmental but compassionate coach for people who are wanting to transition into more conscious consumption, like life begets life for real, and vice versa. So that's, and to be able to be beneficial in this life is something for which I am very grateful. So those are the three.
I have three more. So
Okay.
Let's do them quick.
Okay.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I live another puppy. I'm in the moment. I'm in the present moment. I'm allowing spirit to work through me, or what, love to work through me, and just to see where that takes me. I didn't expect to be like catapulting back to Sarasota. I thought I was just going to get the things and the family heirlooms in storage. I thought my work is done here. I was here for my grandmother and my mother, 20 years. They've left their bodies, and and then I guess that's a little cold of me, because I had many wonderful relationships. I have many wonderful, and since I've been back, so many, like, I just very enthusiastic, welcoming, so many people every day I'm seeing, and I'm not like intentionally reaching out to meet up with people, because it would just be overwhelming, because they call me the people's mayor of Sarasota when I was here. But I'm just seeing people here and there, and it's just delightful, and it just feels like, reliving Christmases past, because here we are around Christmas time, between Christmas and New Year's 2020. So the question again was, it's hard to say, but I do, the thing on my list is to get to that, part of Africa. And so sailing there is, I need to, enroll in sailing lessons here soon. And intend to, I had 3 sailboats I could have crewed on last year from Camden, Maine, but I had a dental emergency, so that didn't happen. So I'm intending, and I know this will be aligned, because I know this is what is required, is for me to get to my roots, and as many times as I've almost lost my life, there's a sense of urgency about it, in this life, with this body, to get there. And so to sail to Italy, train to Spain, row across the Gibraltar Strait to Morocco, make my way to Eritrea. And my friend from Ethiopia, one of my friends, called me yesterday saying, Osha, I'm on my way to Ethiopia on the 4th of January, so let me know when you're there.
Okay. What is one thing many people don't know about you?
God, there's so many things that many people don't know. Most people don't know about me. Let me think. Most people don't know that I paid my way through my first year of college with lip sync prize money. That was so much fun. At that time, I would have been mortified. I used to do modeling and stuff and runway, and it was a lot of fun, because it was kind of like dancing down the runway, and I love to dance. But I always thought that if I had to open my mouth and say a word, I would just collapse. There's no way. And lip syncing was fun, because I didn't think I had a good singing voice really, but lip syncing was fun because I got to do the dance. And to the one that I was doing was from the musical Chicago, When Velma Takes the Stand, and that what my dance teacher taught me back in Maryland. It was kind of like a flapper thing, and people got such a kick out of it. It's very humorous, and I really enjoy bringing joy. I enjoy that's the thing about being on stage, is to be able to bring something beneficial to people. And so I was doing that back then, and I kept winning. And then won a big prize at one point, because it was back then in the mid 80s, all these bars around. I don't know why no one's doing lip sync competitions anymore. Nobody. I haven't ever seen one in 25, 30 years, forever. I don't understand.
Drag Race.
Okay, but I'm saying, I've never seen one. I don't know about that, but never anywhere in DC. I've been in Boston. I've been in New York. I don't see, no one's doing lip sync. And I just thought that was so much fun. And now I'm okay. I can speak, and because of making my documentary kind of tricked me into it, because at my first film festival they said you have to introduce it and then do a Q&A. I thought, I want to backpedal out of ever having made a movie at that point, because I could speak on behalf of my PR clients, but on television and everything, but to speak about myself. But then when I realized I'm only speaking about my personal experience, so yeah, who can say anything about that? I become much more comfortable speaking. So I guess, that would be, most people don't know about that.
And what is some advice that you would give to people watching? Condensed.
Tap into nature. Tap into nature. I'm earthing right now, sitting on the earth. It's very healing. ingesting food in its raw, natural form. This is getting us back to our nature. Not only does it resolve health issues, it helps the mind, it helps the emotions spiritually, just become much more spiritually connected, more. I believe our culture, and we have this is the most programmed culture in the entire world, the most screen time. So, and the programming is very dark. It's very desensitizing, very intentionally so. And people end up becoming like just disconnected from like even with themselves, even if after they'd experienced a trauma and, someone asks if they're okay, I'm fine, everything's fine. And it's definitely not fine. It's not appropriate. Like, we need to be able to express when we're, when we need help. And so tapping into nature, like, seriously, like fresh air, breathing the fresh air, going for hikes in the woods, ingesting food from nature, eat fresh fruit, organic, locally grown, scatter seeds. It's insane that we don't have free food everywhere. It's completely insane. Clearly our job as humans is to eat fruit and scatter seeds, and we're not doing it. We're paying for food. We think we're the smartest species. It's so stupid. We're the only ones defecating and urinating in our own water supply. Gets filtered back, added fluoride, chlorine. It's all the pharmaceuticals are in there, and Florida is the most drugged, it's more drugged than the rest of the nation combined. So you're getting all those pharmaceuticals, plus chlorine, plus fluoride, plus desalinating. They're desalinating more in Florida than any other state. So I suspect, and then now that, Donald signed off on the removal of all, he's just a puppet, but I don't know how much he got paid to sign off on removal of all water protections, like 3 years ago, and we had mass death washing up on every beach in the state of Florida. Even large mammals, whales and sharks and dolphins and manatees, and I believe that water is being desalinated as well and being sold back as tap. So I don't shower. I wash up, but I don't shower. I haven't really in years, because as soon as when I found out Florida's tap water is in the top 10 worst in the nation now. I wonder how close we are to Flint, but you're not going to hear about it in the news because tourism and real estate money. So we gotta wise up. I don't drink water. My hydration comes from fruit, and it's so much more hydrating in smaller quantities because the body, actually the cells they suck it up. Whereas that whatever thing that, is being called water tends to pass right through us, and people get they drink so much of it because it's not hydrating, because it's not good hydration. And the thing is, you can live, I did 60 days on juice. Large cysts in my breast just dissolved and went away that had been there 20 years from all my dairy consumption when I was a vegetarian, not vegan. And 60 days on juice, incredible awakening experience, just a light and clarity, and then you just taking food off the table. My God, the time that you have in the day. And the point is, pay attention. Like, if you're thinking about drinking your tap water, test it. Let's start being more intelligent about things. How are we the smartest species, but we don't know we need like some outside scientist paid by corporations to tell us what we're supposed to eat, but then they keep conflicting with each other? Come on, we need to wise up. What are our instincts telling us? Do you have the instinct to bite the head off of a squirrel? I guess nobody would be hungry otherwise. Instead of being afraid of mice and rats if they came in the house, you'd be like, yay, free food. But no, afraid of all of it. Lions and tigers and bears and possums and rats and mice and spiders and roaches and mosquitoes and sharks and viruses. How are we, the most supreme species, afraid of everything? We are not here to be the species killing everything and like eating everything. We're here, as people say biblically, dominion over all the animals. And they interpret that to mean that we can kill them and eat them. I interpret that to mean that it's our responsibility to protect them.
Thank you so much, Osha.
It's my pleasure, Kenny.